What's up everybody, Jason from Jason's Exotic Reptiles. If you've wondered what cage system or what rack system works best for reptiles, this is the video that you're going to want to watch. So we're going to get right into it and start talking about the different types of caging systems that I've used, from PVC cages to racks, the pros and cons, and hopefully this will help make you guys a more educated consumer when you're going to purchase these systems. First thing I want to get into are the rack systems, because this is what I use, and I've used plenty of PVC cages, I've used plenty of hand-built cages, and I've basically used anything that you can imagine to house a reptile, including containers stacked floor to ceiling with some heat pads under them. So I want to get into it. So racks, there's all different types of commercially available racks out there on the market. There's all different racks that you guys can build yourself. So the first ones I'd like to go into are the PVC racks. These guys, like the ones right behind me, I think they work really well. They're commercially available, readily available. You can get them online or at most reptile shows for a pretty cheap cost. And I think that they're a really nice alternative. Reasons why I like them is that they hold heat and humidity very well. You have full control over the amount of airflow that you can get, because you're physically drilling the holes yourselves. And then you can get them in a lot of different heating options, from no heat to belly heat to back heat. I have a whole different video that just goes on to the pros and cons of back versus belly heat. So if you're interested in that, go back to one of my videos, go to my page, click my videos, scroll down and see you find that video. So I think that they're really good options. As you see, I use them myself. They're not necessarily my favorite. Reasons why I don't like them is that the bins can usually get stuck as you're pulling them in and out. And to me, that's a little frustrating when I'm constantly trying to move quickly and I want to get through these snakes, keep them clean, get into their cage, change their water bowls, and I'm struggling to get the bins in and out. It does seem like I've tried a couple different manufacturers, and I don't want to name them, but I've definitely tried a bunch, and they're all kind of equal in the sense where they always tend to have this problem with bowing over time, and that will eventually make your cages harder to pull out and manipulate. If you only have 10-15 snakes, it's something you can deal with, especially for the price point. But when you have hundreds and thousands of snakes at some point, like I do, it becomes really a pain in the ass to constantly be pulling these bins in and out. The other reason why I don't like them is that when I pull them out, sometimes when I have like an inch or two hanging and I really want to get into the bin, it makes it very difficult for me to get in there because of the bin size. Most of the time they're situated so that they're smaller. Now you can get an exception like the CB70 racks. Those are about 3 foot long, 18-inch wide bins. You can pull that almost all the way out and it'll still hang in there. These smaller ones, like I have behind me, the 15 quart and the 32 quart bins, when I pull them out, I have to just take the whole bin out, put it on a table, clean the cage, clean the snake, and then put it all back. I want to be able to pull it out and not have to take the whole bin out and put it down on something. So stepping up from the PVC, you go to like a Freedom Breeder style. Freedom Breeder, ARS makes them. These are the older style Freedom Breeders. The newer style Freedom Breeders, those things are on point. Same thing with ARS. I've never personally owned them, but I've had friends who have, and I'm pretty impressed with their system overall. They're really nicely designed reptile systems that are built specifically for reptiles. They've already taken into account things that we need to consider. And these older style racks like I have here, the newer ones, they've made great improvements on. They've put different humidity options, and that is a disadvantage that you have from like these Freedom Breeder or ARS style versus the PVC. Is you get the Freedom Breeder ARS, once you pick your airflow requirements, you're stuck with it. So sometimes your humidity can be way too high or way too low, and you're kind of stuck with that. The older style Freedom Breeder, they had this great top to it, so it becomes very difficult at times if you have a separate room that's not, or if you're living in the room and you're not in a humid environment, to keep your humidity up. So my room down here is always humid, so the whole room is humid. These work very well for me because they give sufficient airflow. They're super easy to clean. Those things, like I said, there's nothing in this rack behind me, but like I said, I can pull this rack almost all the way out. I can get in here, I can clean what I need to do, push it back, and then move on to the next one. Versus the ones up here, I have to pull this whole rack out. But again, going back to the humidity issue, is that I have no control over the humidity. It's just a graded top, so it might not be a good option for you. The newer styles are fantastic because you can fully customize them. They come with some nice heat panels. The heat panels are high quality. Everything on these racks are high quality. The other issue that, or the other nice thing about them is that they last a long time. These racks are Kevin McCurley's and some that I've pieced together from private people and purchased myself, but these racks could be 20 years old and they're still holding up and they're going to last another 20 years. The newer styles as well, they're all stainless steel, so they're going to last even longer. Just really nicely made products. A con of that is that you're paying for it. You are going to be paying for the quality. These guys are not cheap. The racks behind me, they're $3,000-$4,000. Then you add some shipping on top of it. But if you can spend the money and you do want a really like A+ quality system, this might be something to consider, to look into these. The next option we're going to go into for racks are handmade, hand-built racks. The first half of me breeding reptiles, I've been doing this for about 25 years now. Maybe the first 15 years, I used almost exclusively hand-built cages and hand-built racks. I made them out of melamine, and I drill them all together. And if you build them right, if you're a little handy with your building skills, they can be amazing systems. Some of the hand-built stuff I had was the best racks that I ever made. The best racks I've ever used because I built them exactly how I needed them. The problem that came with that, though, is they were very heavy. They lasted a long time. Some of the racks that I built years ago, they're probably still in use with some of these people who purchased them from me after I upgraded to some of these different systems here. And they're just really nice systems that you can build yourself, fully customized to exactly where you need them to fit. I almost actually did that because where I have this exposed beam and some heat ducts. I wanted to build racks right around there. Instead, I decided to go with this Freedom Breeder, and I made it work. But you can really maximize and optimize the space that you have available to suit it, so you can just allow more space and more snakes into this space while still getting the same requirements as they would with some of these purchase racks. That's some of the biggest issues that I have with these purchase racks are the sizes. I can't change them. Once they're there, they're there. So that's kind of covering the array of rack systems from PVC to these higher quality, either welded steel or stainless steel racks into the hand-built wooden racks. And you can even get creative. I've seen people get the racks that you buy from Home Depot. They've cut the legs off so that they can make them fit for the tubs. I don't necessarily like those because you have too much exposed and you're going to get a lot of heat loss. But they can work really well. I've seen people use them and they enjoy them and they work fantastic. Going into now caging, like an actual cage. So different types of cages that you have is obviously the one that everybody knows is the glass tank, the aquarium. They're not ideal, but you can modify them. I've raised and bred reptiles in aquariums or terrariums for a long time. It wasn't the best use of space. It wasn't efficient. Obviously, I had to have things to put them on, and they couldn't stack on top of each other. But if you do some modifications to them, cover some of the screen top, put some maybe insulation panels around the sides, they can be some of the best caging that you can possibly own. So I hate to see on some of these social media groups people bashing the aquarium style cages because they forget that years ago we didn't have things like this. We didn't even consider putting them into racks because nobody really used racks. They used cages, and if they did use a rack style cage, it was a whole bunch of cages stacked on top of each other. It wasn't really a rack, and that worked fantastic for many years, and it's still working great for a lot of people now. So I don't want to completely discredit aquariums and glass style tanks because if you do some modifications to them, they can be really nice cage setups. The next step up from that might be like a PVC cage. The PVC cages on the market today are really nicely made, and there's different manufacturer of them. There's Boafile, Freedom Breeder doesn't make it, but Boafile, Animal Plastics, Reptile Basics, Herptastics. There's all different manufacturers of these. Generally, if you can find a PVC rack like this, those same manufacturers are also making the PVC cages. They come in a couple different options with the drop-down door, 2 drop-down doors, or you have sliding glass. I've used them all. It's really personal preference. And I personally like the drop-down doors, but a lot of people like the sliding doors because they can get in and they only need to open up this much of the cage to put a prey item in there. Then they can slide it shut, as opposed to a full one-panel drop-down. You just open that whole enclosure, and sometimes you can have a real difficult time getting snakes into the cage so they don't shoot out the side once you put them in. Far as superiority, what I pay attention to in those are the thickness of the PVC that they use. So you can get a thicker PVC panel like a 1/2 inch PVC or a 3/8 inch. The problem with that is you now need to think of your heating options. Are you going to heat with a light inside the cage? Are you going to put a pad underneath the cage? Or are you going to use a heat panel inside? So I do not use heat panels. I never have, and I don't really like them. I was considering getting them, but I just didn't like the whole logistics of this heat panel on top, and it radiates down. I would just rather put an under tank heat pad. And what I found with some of the PVC cages is that the PVC was too thick for me to use heat tape and have that penetrate through to get them to the temperatures that I wanted. And that's really why I don't use PVC at this point, is I don't like heat panels, and I want it to go through. An option that was really nice for a long time that I used were the Vision cages. Those are molded, I think, HDPD. So those are like the maximum, highest quality. The HDPD molded cages, in my opinion, are about as high as quality as you can get for this, for like a PVC style cage. And the reason for that is it needs to be very thin because it's molded. It's like a 1/4 inch HDPD layer. I can use heat tape on the bottom of that and the heat radiates through fantastically. And that was a really nice cage system that I used for a long time, but it became a little bit difficult to clean them after a while when I have so many snakes. The glass front doors became a pain where substrate would always get caught in the track. And over time, I just lost efficiency. Like I was talking to you guys about these PVC racks, the little things that I didn't like about them, the little pieces that made me lose efficiency as I'm cleaning, were the reasons why I switched over to a different caging system. What I ended up doing after that is I sold some of those off and I used hand-built cages. The hand-built cages are probably some of my favorite cages that I could get. The problem with that is they also have a shelf life. I was using lumber and wood, which you can only seal up so well. I was using just kind of, and what I would do was I would use a 1/4 inch thick bottom to the cage, and then 3/4 inch thick sidewalls, or 1/2 inch thick sidewalls. And the 1/4 inch thick bottom allowed me to still use heat tape and have that penetrate through. But unless you seal all sides, including inside and out, and all the cracks, humidity is always going to damage a PVC or a wood cage. And even if you seal it perfectly, sometimes you'll move the cage and you'll get a little hairline crack that will crack both the wood and the polyurethane or the epoxy that you're using to seal it. Some water will get into that, and eventually it'll deteriorate. Where I went wrong on those is, like I mentioned in my first part of this video, is that my whole room is humid. I was finding that between the cages and the outsides of the cages that I didn't seal, I only sealed the inside with epoxy. So the inside was fantastic. It would hold heat and humidity really well. But the outsides, the cages were starting to grow mold on them as that they were penetrating through. So between the cages, you'd get this little moisture gap, and little mold would start to grow, and it would start to eat through the cage and eventually deteriorate it. And that was kind of the end of my hand-built cage run, is that I really needed something that was going to last, and I was just tired of constantly cleaning it up, putting more epoxy, putting more sealer on it. Just became a pain after a while, but they looked really nice, and I could build them exactly how I wanted them. Similar to the hand-built racks, I could build them to literally go around a corner of a room or a door frame, and you had to be a little bit handy to do that, but some trial and error. They're not difficult to make. So with all those said, I think I covered most of the caging types that are out there on the market. So with the racks, you have the PVC, you have the industrial commercial grade types of racks, then you have your hand-built racks. Then for the caging systems, you have your glass aquariums, you have your PVC sheets put together, your HDPD molded, and then you have your hand-built cages. So hopefully this helps you guys in making your decisions and your choices and purchasing your caging options. Definitely feel free to leave me some comments in the videos. Let me know what you want to hear more of. Let me know where I might have missed. I'm happy to make some corrections or some follow-up videos on this. And I might make a more specific one where I'm just going to go around and show you just each rack type. So I'm going to show you a Freedom Breeder rack. I'm going to show you the PVC racks. I do still have some Vision cages. I can show you the Vision cages, and we can go through a more detailed view of all these different racks and different cage types. So again, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Please continue to subscribe, share the videos. It helps grow the channel, and I really appreciate it. So thanks, guys. I appreciate the continued support, and we'll keep it moving.